right, everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Gate, our Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood podcast. I'm Megan,
And I'm Meg.
and today we have a bonus episode as promised with our final discussion and thoughts for Full Metal, which won't be our last episode, but it will be more of a analytical look at the story.
Yes. First, I'd like to pat ourselves on the back for actually finishing the whole show, because there are many podcasts that I have started about shows that they never finished,
At a
and
noise
I'm
makes no
always
end.
so sad. And I
Yeah.
did not want to be one of those. So yes, we did it.
Yeah, but
Uh,
we're just gonna do this episode in particular we wanted to do because although we covered every single episode, there is a whole lot to talk about that you just can't pack into all those. So we had to make this overarching analysis discussion.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so we kind of broke it down into different groups of things, I guess, and
Yeah.
we will get into it. So the first thing that Megan really wants to talk about is the story structure.
Yes. This kind of comes from a class I took in college, but we had a story structure class, and I was wondering if Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, since it's an Eastern piece of media, will it hold up to the Western standards of entertainment? So story structure, especially in the US, but mostly in the West, is basically this the rule of thumb that all stories follow. You can pretty much pick apart any story and find these elements in it. The order of it may vary, but here's the usual order. The ordinary world, call to adventure, refusal of the call, meeting with the mentor, crossing the threshold, tests allies enemies, the approach, the ordeal, reward, road back, resurrection, return. Those all mean different things, but basically it's just like the steps the characters take in their journey. And I was coming up with a few ideas for each. So ordinary world in a story is just where the character starts out. So for Ed and Al, that would be in Risenbool when they were kids. Call to adventure is when the journey really begins, and I think for Ed and Al, that would be after they commit the human transmutation and Mustang invites Ed to become a state alchemist. But then refusal of the call, I was having difficulty with because Ed and Al don't really refuse. They need to go on this journey, but I'm sort of wondering if the refusal can come in another form, such as when they refuse to use the Philosopher's Stone. That's not really under the same lines though, because normally in the hero's journey, when they refuse the call, it's initially at the beginning when someone's like, hey, go get this thing or go complete this quest or whatever, and the hero will have some reservations. But I don't know, may pause for a moment, but I don't think they ever they're so determined they might have skipped this step.
Yeah, I can't really think of anything.
Yeah. But moving on, meeting with the mentor, I think that would be training with Izumi. Crossing the threshold, that's when Ed becomes a state alchemist. Then the tests allies and enemies, that's pretty much the entirety of FMAB. That's all the things they do in the meantime. The approach is, I think, probably the promised day, getting closer to battling father, all the things ramping up to that. Ordeal would be facing father. The reward would be defeating father and getting Ed's arm back. I think then road back, resurrection, and return happen in a different order because resurrection is when they get Al back, when they retrieve him from the portal, and then road back and return is just Ed and Al being able to go home and see Winry again, for the most part in their original bodies, minus, Ed's automail leg.
Yeah, so it does follow the story structure fairly
Yeah,
close.
there's some parallels, but also some deviations. I think the biggest one would probably be with the Philosopher's Stone, because in a story, there's a thing called the elixir that's in the hero's journey, and that's usually the goal that you're trying to get to or the reward you're trying to obtain. In this case, the Philosopher's Stone was kind of debunked right away as not being what you think it is, and it wasn't ultimately what they needed all along to get their goals. And they did get their bodies back, but Ed ended up sacrificing something else. So I think it just subverts a couple of those expectations while still holding true to the majority of the hero's journey. And it also includes a lot of the archetypes found in story structure, which would be hero, mentor, guardian of threshold, herald, shapeshifter, shadow, ally, and trickster. Hero, obviously, Ed and Al. Mentor could be Izumi, maybe even Hohenheim a little bit, or Roy. Guardian of the threshold, I'd say that could be like all of the homunculi they have to face in order to get to father. Um, the herald is the one who like sends the message to the hero. I think that could be Mustang as well, I guess, because he got Ed and Al into this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Shapeshifter, well, we obviously have one of those, that's Envy, but but what they mean in the hero's journey, Shapeshifter is usually like a character who seems good but is actually evil.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's like the whole of the military who change sides.
Yes. And also, obviously, Shao Tucker.
Yeah, that too.
And
Ouch. Thanks for opening that wound.
then there's also I don't know, they have the opposite where it's like Scar seemed bad, but then he's actually good.
That's true. You can have a change of heart. And the shadow, I mean, like, could be a villain. It could be Scar. He changes. It could also be Father. Allies got plenty of those. And then we got the trickster character, which I would argue is Greedling, because tricksters are notorious for not being really malevolent, but just kind of troublesome at times.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
kind of how he was.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with that assessment.
And I think we've proved Eastern media can follow similar paths that Western media does.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now let's get into the nitty-gritties of these characters.
Yay.
Our favorite part, character analysis.
Yes, character analysis. Um, well, I guess just to first start with like a big overarching view, one thing that I really like about this story is that like every character like is important. They all serve a purpose. Um, I feel like for most stories that is true because it's a lot of work for authors to like just make up characters that serve no purpose, but um some do it. But also I like that a lot of the characters not only are they important and serve a purpose, but they're also like redeemable too. Like I would say most of the homunculi at some moments I felt for them and like could
Yeah.
see where they're coming from. Even Father, like at the end when he dies, like you kind of feel for him.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the only person who wasn't redeemable was Shao Tucker, obviously.
Even the
Um,
mangaka didn't think he was redeemable. She sent him down instead of
yeah.
up in the character panel.
Yeah, like every single character like went to heaven except for him. So,
Yep.
yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment that he was the only irredeemable character. Uh, so I don't know. I just love all the characters. Even okay, no, I don't love Yoki, but
No.
even he
But he
like
served a
had his
purpose.
yeah, he did. He served a purpose and like he had his moments where he was actually like important for the story. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so let's
That's
start with our main
yes.
guy.
Yeah, we kind of wanted to like talk about just a few of the characters and like their growth throughout the series. So let's start with Ed. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say he like changed throughout the series, but like some of his like character traits became more developed throughout the
Yes,
series.
he
Like,
grew up.
yeah, exactly. Like, I would say he became more caring and thoughtful and also just like more open with his emotions. Like at the end, he like actually literally cried in front of everyone where like throughout the like whole series, like they made a point of pointing out that like he wouldn't cry. Um, but then in the end he does. And also I think he becomes just more like open-minded too as he learns more about the world around him and meets like all different people from all over this world. And I think one of the things he learned is that people are important and they're more important than the goals you're trying to reach. Which I think he always like at the very beginning, he's like, I'm not going to kill anyone. So obviously he had that. He already knew that, but then I think in the end, he literally like gives up his alchemy and is like, I don't need it. I have them. Like
Yeah.
I think that's
I
awesome.
think
And
moments of great intensity just spur Ed to new ideas. Like when he
mhm,
first got Alphonse back out of the portal when they were kids, when they first tried human transmutation, in a desperate moment he came up with an idea and just saw it through. And then
mhm,
like I guess the thought never occurred to him that he could exchange his door for Al's body. And then in that moment of panic when he thinks he lost his brother's like thinking and thinking of a solution and he comes up with that and it's like it was there all along. It was obvious and I know I'm gonna be okay if I do this.
yeah. I also think he also definitely became more patient.
Oh yes.
Um, he he's a little bit of a hothead and annoyed easily. Um, but by the end, he's just like a lot more gentle and willing to show his emotions and just more. I mean, just like we said, like more caring and understanding. And also I think he learned that you need to think before you do science. Like after learning about how the Philosopher's Stone was made, and but okay, think before you do science. We'll get more into that later. Uh, and then we also wanted to talk about what his defining characteristic was at the beginning versus the end, which we kind of already talked about a little, but definitely at the beginning, the things that defined him the most was I think his determination to get um their bodies back, and then also just righteous anger. He was an angry boy, not just about like being short, but just like in general. Like his
Mm-hmm.
first instinct was,
Fight.
yeah, exactly,
Fight or
exactly.
flight, fight. Yeah, I think well the next point we had is that at the end of the series he's more of a protector and learns more of the values of love. But I think they were always there inside him. I think that's where his
Mm-hmm.
anger was spurred on from because yeah, he got ticked off about his height and he's just generally a person who can get angry easily. He only got furious when people would mess with Al, like when they would do
Mm-hmm.
something that could hurt his brother, that's when he just lost it.
Yeah, yeah. It's more how he learned how to deal with his emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and what do we think? Was he a good main character?
The best.
I don't know. I really like him as a main character. Like he is one where like I feel like often in shows the main character is not my favorite, but in this case he is my favorite.
Yeah.
He
That's true for me too. I usually like the best friend character who dies
Yep,
tragically.
yep. You know, there's not really a character like that in this show. So
Ling a
you're
little bit, but not so much. I mean,
yeah, and he didn't die. So
yeah. Oh.
um he I like as a main character, like he has flaws. It's it's obvious, and he's made some big mistakes, but then like he recognizes that and chooses to overcome them. I don't know, like I'm just thinking of like, okay, I love Tanjiro in Demon Slayer, but that boy is so perfect. Like,
Too perfect.
yeah, like you can't. Trying to think of like a flaw that he has.
Hmm.
Right? Like literally when they're walking through his mind, it's
It's a
literally like just
tranquil,
like
peaceful.
yeah.
He's so precious.
Yeah. No,
Okay,
I do love him, but
yeah. Oh, a main character I'll compare Ed to is Hinata from Haikyuu because I love Haikyuu so much, but it's just got such a wide cast of characters that Hinata doesn't end up being my favorite, even though he's pretty cool. He's also just like he's a little spark plug and sometimes he's a bit much for me.
mm-hmm. Agreed.
Still love that boy though.
Yeah. Yeah. But we love Ed. He's the best. And now on to Alphonse, who's
Yeah.
also the best.
Yeah.
I think the biggest change he had throughout the series is that he became more confident,
Yeah, I
for
didn't want him to
sure.
change at all because he's already so sweet. But yes,
Yeah.
a little confidence boost was just what he needed.
Yeah, he learned to like stand up for himself and for others. And it's
Mm-hmm.
super sweet. And the biggest lesson he learned, I think, is that what makes a person is what's on the inside. And I think that's something that he had he kind of had to learn
Yeah,
because he was literally just a suit of armor. And
having
I
an
think,
existential crisis.
yeah. Um,
Person, person, no matter how small. Sorry, Ed.
oh man, have you seen that you've seen that movie, right?
Fortnite Years of Who? Yeah.
Yes. My family used to watch that all the time.
Do you
So
ever see
good.
the original cartoon? Like the old one? 2D animated.
Maybe. I feel like I am picturing it. It's not like images. It's not like actually.
Yeah,
It's like what
we
I'm
had it on
what
VHS, so it's older.
yeah. No, I'm trying to think of what I'm trying to describe. Well, like those animatics where
Oh, yeah, it's not an animatic.
it's like it's like actually
It's
animated.
fully animated.
Oh, maybe I don't think I've seen that.
Okay, that
No.
one it had some good music in it. It was really cute. And the kangaroo was my favorite part. He was really cute.
The little
The little
kangaroo?
kangaroo. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I read that book, what a really tangent, but what I remember was like the kangaroo said humph, and the little kangaroo in her pouch said humph too. And my mom would always do like a really high pitch when she read that. It's so
It's so
cute.
high pitched I can't even hear it
I kind of figured
over
that would
Zoom.
happen too.
Yeah. No, I love that movie. I should watch that movie again. Anyway, you know what? Like Al is yeah, he is important a little bit. Like he's just like a gentle giant.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, um and I think the thing that defined him at the beginning was his quiet gentleness. But by the end, he was definitely stronger and more confident, like we already said.
Quiet, quiet, but still strong and confident.
Yeah, he's the best boy.
Yes.
And also just one like super random thing that I wanted to mention. I don't think we've talked about it before, but just like one thing that's super funny to me is that everybody just like accepts that Alphonse is a little boy in giant armor. Like throughout the whole
Yeah.
series. Like it's just like, oh, yep, he's 14 years old. He's just hanging out in that suit.
Seven
It's
feet
like,
tall.
yep, no questions.
I would have questions.
Right? I would have lots of questions, but maybe everybody's just like too polite there to be like,
No one's curious enough.
yeah, or yeah, nobody has any curiosity. They're just like, ah, just another Monday. It's
In a world where you can do alchemy, sure, why not?
yeah, but it's not like everybody knows about alchemy, but it's not like the world is super magical, you know.
True. Yeah.
It is more grounded. I don't know. That's didn't make sense to me, but it's
Whatever.
fine. Yeah, it's fine. Um, and then Winry.
Yeah.
How did she change throughout the series? I would say that she became more confident in her skills and abilities. And like she worked hard to become more confident.
Yeah, and she
Um
started seeing herself through other people's eyes in a good way, in where she saw how much people needed her and relied on her, and that made her want to work even harder.
mhm. And then I think the biggest thing that she learned, which ties into her becoming more comfortable in her skills and capabilities, is that her hands are capable of doing great things. Which we saw in her constantly taking care of Ed's automail and doing a great job.
Yeah,
Um, and also she bakes some awesome apple pies.
that's the most important thing, right?
Yes, yes. And then her defining characteristics at the beginning, she was definitely a spitfire. Just said what was on her mind and wasn't afraid to
Throw
tell
a wrench
people
at
how it
somebody's
is.
head.
Yes, and throw wrenches. Specifically at Ed, but he deserved it. Uh, sometimes.
Sometimes. I don't think he deserves a concussion.
No, no. And then, but by the end, I think she was very forgiving. Like we talked about, especially like her forgiving Scar for killing her parents. Like, yeah, just not just forgiving, but just being more understanding and like learning to wait, just waiting and trusting that Ed and Al were gonna come back. And like, even though there wasn't anything she could do directly to help them, like just being patient, I guess. I guess she also learned that too. Both she and Ed needed to learn that, and I think they both did.
And that's why they can work as a couple, because before maybe they couldn't.
No, I think they would have fought way too much.
Yeah.
But now I feel like they will definitely fight, but it's in a better way, I guess.
I feel like it would go
It's not,
something like, Ed, why didn't you drink your milk? I don't want to. Well, you better. Fine. And that's it.
yeah, yeah. And then we also wanted to talk about a couple other characters besides I would say those are our main three. We also want to talk about Ling Yao because he is awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so how did he change throughout the series? I think he took on, like he learned what it meant to be a good ruler. Like he took on the like true responsibility of that, and I think that hit like watching the Fuhrer and like seeing how he did things and realizing that it wasn't right. I mean, I think he realized it right away. Um and wanting to do things differently. Because I think, you know, when he came to Amestris, he was like, I'm gonna get immortality to help my clan and, you know, just my people. Like, but then by the end, he realized, no, I need to take care of everyone. Like the entirety of Xing, they are my people. Like it's not just like my tiny clan, I guess.
Yeah.
Actually, I wouldn't say tiny because I don't know how big it is, but
Well,
um
I think he learned how to be more ambitious. Like he learned when he bit off more than he could chew, but he also learned like some risks are worth taking.
mhm. Yeah. And I think that's what he learned is, well, like I just said, a good king cares for all of his people, but then also like to achieve your goals, sometimes sacrifices have to be made.
Yeah.
Um like him taking on Greed, uh, which was a huge risk. He's kind of a dummy for doing that, but he was trying. And then also, Fu uh dying as well. Like that was a big loss for him. But it also like taught him that you can't like sacrifice that to be made, I guess, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, defining characteristics. At the beginning, I think he was kind of a wild card. We didn't know if we could trust him, and he was also just kind of funny. Like I remember, like we already talked about this, but when I met him at the first episode, I was like, I do not like this guy. But then, like by the
I didn't
like,
like him either just for the fact I'm like, we have our cast of characters. We don't need someone
hmm
new. What's this guy doing here? And then he did his whole, sorry, me no speak the country language so much. Bye bye. And when he did that, I was like, I'm okay with him.
yeah. But by the end, he is definitely more responsible. He has become a true leader and a great friend to Ed and then also to Greed, who
Yeah.
was lost, but he was a good friend to him. Uh, and then we also want to talk about some other characters like Olivier, just because she is great. The reason we want to talk about her is because she is just a great female character that is in power.
Yep.
Like she just
So
owns
many
it
things could have
and
gone
like
wrong with her character, but
yeah.
it was she was beautifully written.
Yeah. She just owns her power, doesn't take crap from anyone. But like she's still like she is a little rough around the edges, but like you can tell like she genuinely cares about her her men. Um but that doesn't make her soft. Like I
Yeah,
think
and
that
she's
makes her
smart. She's really
stronger.
smart too.
Yes, she's intelligent and um also just like her relationship with Buccaneer, like that's like such a great leader subordinate relationship. Like he respected her and listened to her, um and she trusted him to make the right decisions when she couldn't be there. And that's how I feel like that's how it kind of was with Miles too, even though we didn't really get to see him so much at the end. But um
Yeah, yeah, definitely. She just really trusts him and he would do anything for his men.
yeah, Olivier is awesome. Okay, Roy. He's an awesome character.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Sorry. That's
you
all I
said it
have to
with
say
a
about
look
him.
on your face.
I know, I was about to say he's hot, but then I was like, maybe I shouldn't say that.
Dum, tsh.
Literally. Um, no, I really like his character. I think I saw like a post about this, but I think we've talked about this before too, but like he is really driven by like what happened I mean by the Ishvalan War. Like that is like his main motivation. Um, and I really appreciate that because like instead of choosing, I did this horrible thing, I'm just gonna like give up on life and um like do nothing or just like choosing to die. Uh, Instead he's like, no, I really screwed up. I'm gonna work to change what happened. I mean, not change what happened, but I'm gonna work to redeem myself.
Yes, I
Um,
really liked his character arc.
hmm and also his friendship with Hughes was that. I mean, that was also a big character development moment for him, like choosing to let go of his anger and not, not not murdering Envy out of revenge. Um, I think that was a big moment for him. That when he
Yeah.
needed to do that. Um, and I think he's gonna make a great president one day, hopefully without his mustache, though.
Yes, and hopefully with the first lady at his side.
Yes. Ugh. I want that.
Too bad, so sad, never gonna happen. Anyway.
Right. Right. Um, all right. I don't know. Anything else to say about Roy?
Nope.
Okay. Hohenheim. He was an interesting character. Like
He
when I
surprised me.
first, yeah, like when you first meet him, like you're like, oh, he's the worst dad ever.
I
He
was
just
prepared to hate
ditched
his
his,
guts. I was with
yeah,
Ed. I was like, how dare you, sir? How dare you?
yeah. And honestly, for most of the show, that is how I felt until the end, really. And then I think I saw another post about somebody talking about how Hohenheim, like him ditching his kids, is maybe not like what, like he didn't think about it that way. Like he has been alive for centuries. Like him leaving them, like, oh, yeah, it's not going to be that long. Forgetting that they're literally children and they change a lot, even in just a few years. He he also just had a lot going on. I mean, he, his his entire race was, totally obliterated with, you know, not, he didn't mean to, but he did help do that. And he had like 500,000 souls living inside of him. And so he's also dealing with that. And,
I
um,
just, I give him a pass, a soft pass,
mhm,
he, because he was undergoing a mission that would save the world as they knew
mhm.
it.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, he spent his whole life trying to overcome, or like, overcome that one mistake and
yeah, and
defeat father.
it could be argued that after having a family that gave him more motivation to like put his plan into motion to stop father because he has kids
Mhm.
to protect now. But the reason I say like he doesn't get a full pass for that is because he should have at least made an effort to come back and visit the boys or say something or write them a letter. He didn't even say
Mhm.
goodbye. He just left.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like he needed to at least be a little bit more active in their lives because I mean, it's very obvious that he loves them and like wants the best for them. But there is no, besides at the end of the story, there is no like action necessarily to back that up. But he's an interesting character because you're like, oh, he's just gonna be the terrible deadbeat dad that all anime, you know, has those.
Either a
But
deadbeat or the dead dad.
deadbeat or dead. Um, but no, there's more to him, and he actually plays an important part in the story. Um, I mean, he made a reverse transmutation circle to defeat father, and then he offered up his life to get Al back, even though um Ed did the right thing and refused. Yeah, and then I like at the end, like when he's sitting at Trisha's grave, although in the manga it happens like when they're like in heaven, like he's like, well, you would be proud of our kids. They're gonna do great,
Yeah.
and they have done great. So I don't know. I don't hate him, but he also was not perfect. But also that's being human. Like
Yes.
nobody's perfect. Yeah, and finally, let's talk about the villains.
Hmm.
Uh, so the homunculi. What do we think of them as villains?
It was a
Just the
very interesting
homunculi
take.
first.
Yes, yeah. They all had their names categorized them, and it made it very interesting. Like, it was an interesting viewing experience to be like, why is this one called this? Why is this one called that? In the case of lust and gluttony, it made total sense. And they were the first two introduced, so that does track that they would be the most easily identifiable, given their names. But in the case of like envy and pride and wrath and even sloth, you're like, okay, why are they the ones that they are? Greed made it pretty obvious when we met him.
Mm-hmm.
But like with sloth, you're like, oh yeah, he's the lazy one, obviously, because sloth is like when you don't do the things you're supposed to do, etc. But then his superpower is like moving really fast. And so
Mm-hmm.
so you're like, oh, this is interesting now. Or then with Pride and Wrath, we kept going, oh, let's see why like what characteristics they have to make them those in particular. And then
Mm-hmm.
and I think envy was the hardest one to suss out because you're like, what is he envious about? And then you
And yeah,
find
really
out
at the end you find
humans.
out when he dies. I think like yeah, I agree with that. I think the one that had the hardest time with seeing like their attribute was wrath. 'Cause like he always said he was angry, but like I never felt like I really saw that, I guess.
I think it was just his ruthlessness that made him wrath. Like
Yeah.
not as much as the
Yeah.
anger, but more of like the cutthroat outlook on life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I think like overall they were good villains. I was like always I still am confused like about the origins. Like I was just thinking about this today, like how do you think the door from the flask was actually like made? Because like at the end when he goes back into the portal of truth, it implies like, okay, that's where he came from. So like did how did that alchemist like get him out of there?
I have a
I
feeling it
don't
has
know.
something to do with the hands that shoot out of the door that try to drag people in. Like he was one of those sets of hands. And I think every time the door opens and the hands reach out, they're trying to embody a person or something like that, trying to take them over and become human. So maybe by
Hmm.
using that drop of Hohenheim's blood and like doing experiments, they're able to get one of those things out of the portal in a very tentative way. And that's why he had to stay in the flask until he could take on human form.
Yeah, okay. I like that. I like that theory. I don't know. I'm just like thinking about like, okay, he used his blood. It wasn't just his. No, it was just Hohenheim's blood. Um.
And they're just running experiments over and over, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Because Hohenheim, when we saw him in that flashback, he had a bandage all the way up his arm. He wouldn't need that big of a bandage if they just drew blood once. I think they kept going
Mm-hmm.
after him.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it that he was one of the hands. Hmm. Interesting. Okay. I also like I've seen like multiple posts about this, how all the homunculi like die in ironic ways. So well, Lust was killed by a man. Um
Gluttony was eaten.
yes, yes. Gluttony was eaten. Envy committed suicide out of self-pity. Sloth exhausted himself to death. Uh Wrath, well, I said he rests in peace, which he kind of did. His death was kind of peaceful.
Yeah.
Um, and then Pride died pleading for his life, and Greed sacrificed himself. So it's kind of interesting. And I like that. I don't know. The author just like really thought this out. Um,
Yes.
Father was a villain.
He was a good final boss to be against,
He
but he
yeah, he
wasn't as
was. He
proactive
was
a
also
villain.
yeah, I mean, I feel like that's pretty common in stories where like you have all the like really great like henchmen and then the final boss is like you fight him and then it's over.
I
Like
will
it's
forever complain about Avatar: The Last Airbender because the final fight with Ozai was considerably less exciting than the fight against Azula.
yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's something that's pretty common. Is that like the big boss is like, all right, we're here. Okay, we beat him. Yay. Um,
We
but I
got
mean,
so
Father,
ripped
it,
fighting your underlings that you are no problem.
yep, exactly, exactly. He was like, it did take everybody to defeat him. And like, he kind of shot himself in the foot because
Yeah.
he like tried to take on God. Like he tried to absorb God. So he kind of got rid of all of his strength with that. And so he wasn't able to like be at full power when
Mm-hmm.
trying to fight everybody off.
So
Um,
he was a good villain. He was a good final
mhm,
boss. There were stakes involved. It's just that it was definitely something it's like we got to save this for the end. We can't have
mhm.
him be consistently the villain. We have to send
Yeah,
the underlings.
yeah. Which makes sense. So I liked him as a villain.
Yep.
And yeah. Now on to relationships.
Yeah.
Yes.
First,
Um,
before we talk about the romantic ones, I just want to say that the friendship, the brotherhood, if you will, relationships are peak. And the familial ones obviously are amazing too.
mhm.
I cannot stress family and found family enough in stories.
Yes, found family and stories is like
Mwah.
my favorite. So good. Um, but before we talk about like the specific couples in the show, the physical contact is peak in this show. Like this is like the first show that I watched where it was like, oh, like the big moment was like a hug. And I loved that way more than like just making out.
Yeah,
Like
I mean it
it's
seems
like
like
so sweet and
yeah, it means more when you're just
mhm
embracing somebody. 'Cause I don't know, it's not like I mean kisses can be pure and innocent, but at the same time it feels like there's something in it for the person who initiates the kiss, you know, like I want that buzz, that rush or whatever. But when it's a
mhm
hug, it's like I just want to be near you. I just want to hold you. You're so precious to me.
mhm yeah. So I loved like I just and I love that like there is no kissing in this show. And yet the couples that are in it, like you know how much they care about each other. Like you can just see that in the way they act with one another. Even like Sig and Izumi, they are married. Like it's just it's so great. Like the show really made me appreciate like the little things, like the small tender moments.
Yeah.
Um, so just wanted to say that. And I guess we'll start with Roy and Riza. So at the end, they're obviously like they're not officially together. The author herself, she even said like they can't be together because of their relationship in the military. Because if they were together, they couldn't have she like couldn't be his subordinate anymore, and they don't want that, which makes me sad. And the author also said like literally they would be together if it wasn't for that.
Well, I'm glad you confirmed that. Yeah, I guess someday Roy will retire, hopefully sooner
Hmm.
rather than later, and then they can get married.
Yes. So even though they're not like an official couple, it's super obvious that they are in love. Um, and I also really like I think they are my favorite like adult couple. Like they like mirror what real relationships can be. Like the difficult decisions that have to be made and just like the implicit trust in one another to do the right thing and also like pushing each other to see clearly and make the right decision. Um, and also just like the sacrifices that they both had to make to do what's right. And I don't know, I just love them. So cute. Ah. And now Ed and Winry.
Yeah. Ah man, Meg's laughing because I had a little quote. It's just like everyone in their lives shipped them together. Like Al shipped them, and like everyone he everyone who knew about Ed and Winry, like Hughes was like, "Ooh, you seduced your mechanic," and I mean, everyone knew. And so I had a saying like when they were home in Risenbu, I was like, "If Grandma ships it, you know it's gonna sail," because Pinako is definitely on Team Edwin.
Yep. Yep. I they're just like
Childhood
the
friends to lovers ship,
yes.
but done
Yep.
right.
Yes. I like because they both like on their own realized that they liked each other, and then like even though other people were kind of bothering about it, they decided for themselves like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, wait, I actually do like them.
Because they're probably used
Um
to that growing up. If you're a guy and have a friend who's a girl growing up and vice versa, you will get that stuff from people. Like, people will be like, ooh, you gonna get married someday? And I think for them, they learned to tune it out, especially since they were such close childhood friends. They probably felt like siblings. But then, like, the older they got and the more they tuned it out, the more they had to, like, really look within themselves to be like, okay, gotta assess my emotions. Do I really feel this way about this person? Or is it outside influence? Because if it's outside influence, I gotta keep blocking it out. But if not, I gotta really make the judgment call right here and now.
mhm. And the proposal is so adorable. Honestly, it's like ugh, I love it. I actually think I like it even better in the manga. Like I mean it's basically the same, but it's very sweet. Let me actually go to it to see if there's anything I wanted to point out. Oh, okay. I like how Ed starts out his little speech was in the manga. He's like, I was just thinking about an appointment or more like a promise between us, you know? Like it's so cute. Um,
If I were Winnie, I'd be like, come here, you dork. I love you so much.
right, right. So they're so cute, and they are a couple that I want it to happen. Sometimes, like the main couples, I'm like, no thanks. But this one, I am 100% behind. Also, then Al and May,
Yeah.
they, I like, well, what you wrote that at first it started out as an infatuation on May's side for sure. Um, but then it turned to true trust and affection for one another. So much so that even Ed saw it at the end. He's like, "Oh, May really you really care about Al, don't you, May?" Um, they're just like the sweet, innocent, like they're too young. They're too young to actually like do anything yet, but you know it's gonna happen. And you see
Yeah.
at the end, like,
She's still around.
yep.
Maybe not a
Uh,
ring on that finger, but it's coming.
yes. uh And then Azumi and Sig, and we kind of already mentioned them, but they are true couple goals. Like
Yeah.
some strong-willed, amazing people who love
Make
each
it
other
work.
dearly. Yeah, yeah, it's pretty awesome. And then here some couples that are maybe or maybe not couples. Ling and Lanfan. I don't know, like if they actually
They
are or like
definitely have the
what.
loyalty to each other.
Yeah. And
I
like you could tell
mean,
they really care about each other, but I never knew if it was like like I don't know.
I would
It's hard
say
to know.
I'm leaning more towards there's interest there, but I think their positions in like being royalty would stop them from actually becoming a couple. But no matter what, they will
Yeah.
have each other's backs.
I agree with that. Like I don't think that they would actually be a thing just because yeah, he's going to be the emperor and she's his loyal guard.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's how it is. Um, and then this one, I don't think they're actually a couple, but
No.
Ross and Brosh, I think they're just good friends for sure.
I like their
If anything, I always saw it more as like maybe Brosh was interested, but
yeah, but they do have different ranks, so I don't think they
mm,
could do anything
yeah,
about it either. But I just
man,
like their kind of buddy cop vibe.
everybody's jobs getting in the way of their relationships.
Quit your job if you really want to get hitched.
Don't do it.
No.
Just kidding. Um, yeah, but I love all the official and unofficial couples
Yeah.
in the show.
The
Um,
romances, the bromances, the everything in between.
yes.
Okay, so our next category here is kind of ironic. It's biblical themes found in the show. And I say it's ironic because, Ed's all like, oh, I don't believe in God and all that. I think he changes his tune by the end of the series, given that he fist fights somebody who claims to have the power of God. But so we noticed, obviously, there is the mention of truth and what is truth in the Bible. Truth is often spelled like, well, in some versions, isn't it spelled with a capital T because the way the truth in the life, it's like
I think
proper
so.
noun. Yeah,
Yeah.
so truth is a major theme throughout Christianity and Judaism, and it's just like speaking of it's not, what am I looking for, objective or subjective?
Do you mean like truth is truth?
Yeah, exactly. Truth is truth,
Like
and you can't change
you
it.
can't change what is true.
Yeah. And it kind of goes against the grain of especially what we believe nowadays, where it's like, oh, everybody has their own truth, their own story to tell. And while, yes, we all have our individuality, there are things in the world that are things you can't change. And I think throughout the story of Full Metal, Ed not only meets truth, but he starts to realize what truth means. And it's just kind of his story of growing up, coming of age story. Um, there's more to it than that, but I think Arakawa is smart with not elaborating too much on the character of truth, and it's
Hmm.
just something that the characters have to discover on their own.
Yeah. The characters
Um,
and the audience
and the
to
audience,
interpret
yes.
what it means.
Yeah. The next thing was the seven deadly sins. Obviously, that is biblical, and we have covered that before, but just wanted to bring it up again. And that leads right into the fruits of the spirit, which we also covered when talking about the seven deadly sins and how the good guys embody the fruits of the spirit rather than the vices of man. Um, and then a big a big point that I wanted to bring up was the whole getting their body back theme. Ed and Al trying to get their bodies back reminded me of the promise of getting your new bodies or your heavenly bodies. And if you don't know what that is, in Christianity, there's this belief that one day heaven and earth shall pass away, and God will bring his people to a new heaven and a new earth, and you will receive new bodies that don't age or tire, and basically the world will be rid of sin and everything will be perfect again. So like just Ed and Al striving for their bodies kind of made me think of the human soul striving for their heavenly bodies. Um, the next theme was body, mind, and soul, how they're all connected, and that is also biblical because of the spirit that man has and how that is eternal. You have your life on earth, and then there's what happens after life, heaven or hell. And then yeah, I guess I mentioned that, but everlasting life. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up was the whole theme of repenting or there being justice or grace given to people, because we saw that with a bunch of characters. There were characters like Scar, who he repented of what he did, realizing that his path that he was taking wasn't what he was meant to do. He wasn't supposed to be the hand of God seeking vengeance. In the same way, Mustang learned what justice was because he thought he would avenge Hughes by killing Envy, but it it would be serving justice, but not in the right way. And then Grace, I think Ed probably embodies that the most, like showing grace to his
Hmm.
enemies, especially with pride, and just the fact that they adhere to equivalent exchange, and yet there are times when you can, like Al said, where you want to add to what people give and create more. So, like giving grace to somebody and not demanding anything in return.
Yeah. And another thing that we wanted to discuss, not just biblical themes, but also just historical themes that Arakawa built into her story. We already like discussed some of these, but like the similarities between like the Ishvalan War of Extermination and World War II, like it was we kind of we already did discuss it, but just like how brutally the Ishvalan people were exterminated for no reason, and like especially to me, like when they were like focusing on like the sharp blue eyes and like blonde hair of the
Yep.
soldiers like that were murdering the Ishvalan people, like that was a huge thing. Like the uh what was it, the Aryan race, like that
Yep.
was
Aryan
like
Aryan perfection, quote unquote.
yes, yeah, it was like the blue eyes, blonde hair. um and then also like the I don't know, it's just like her whole world is very interesting because even if like you look at the map, like Amestris is, I would say, not just Germany, but like just I would say Western Europe.
Yep.
And then we have like Drachma is, I would say, like Russia.
They were wearing those hats that Russians
Yeah.
wore. That's pretty clear to me. They're
Uh-huh.
Russian.
Uh-huh. And then you have like Shing and like um at the end Al mentioned like there's a lot of other Eastern countries as well. And like she did a pretty good job of like basing, like they had like the Eastern culture that was based more on, I would say, like mm,
China and Japan?
yeah, I think so. Um but even just like the mindset was like Eastern versus Western.
Yeah.
Western is very, I would say, individualistic and um
Eastern is more familial and traditional.
yeah, yeah, and I think that was something that she focused on. Um and then also the world was set, I mean it was like steampunk but also like set in like the early 1900s, like the
Hmm.
Industrial Revolution, like
That was one of my favorite
they
aspects of the show. Like
uh-huh
they had technology like phones and stuff that was very archaic, but then they have like this automail that is leaps and bounds ahead of what we have today.
yeah, yeah, that was yeah, I love that too. And I love like the traveling on the trains and like the old cars, and it was it's great. That's like a time period that I like enjoy studying,
Yeah.
and that there's things that I appreciate about it.
Yes. I also
Um
liked the clothing choices she made for the characters
mhm.
because at times I saw Ed and Al wearing clothes of that time period and they looked very good. It's of my personal opinion that suspenders and newsboy caps should be brought back into fashion, but
Yes.
yes. But then they also had clothes that seemed a lot more modern, like the sweatshirts they were
Mhm.
wearing, and some of Winry's clothes, like
Yeah.
her mechanic outfit was very modern looking.
Yeah, it was kind of a mix. I liked it. Yeah, so it was interesting that she based her world very much on our own world, but then like I think she mentions in like one of the extra things in the back of the manga is that there is, there's no Christmas, there's no like there doesn't have the same religious systems as our world does. And obviously none of the countries or anything have the same names. But they're obviously based on real world places.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so I don't know. I really like the world building that she does.
for sure. Yep. World building, character building, everything really. What more could
Mm-hmm.
you want? I think she also did a phenomenal job of setting her like fictional country in a Western culture that she probably needed to do a lot of research for, being Japanese. So
Mm-hmm.
she chose a lot of names that, like, to us, Edward, Alphonse, like those names are easy for us and kind of
Mm-hmm.
familiar, but to her it was probably, I think she said she went through a European baby name book or something like that. It's like that, I mean, that would be like you and I trying to make a character who was Asian and trying to look up like the pronunciations, especially Chinese names, like um watching Link Click just made me go, oh, I know nothing of how to pronounce any of these names. I gotta
Yeah.
really listen and learn. So I'm proud of her for like going the extra mile and saying, I'm gonna make this a European world and I'm going to learn these names.
Yeah, I'm always curious about like other countries and what they learn about in like what they learn about world history.
What do they think of Americans is what I
Oh my
want to know.
gosh.
Or maybe I don't want to
I don't
know.
want to know. Um, all right. And then on to something fun that we have not really covered since I think it was like episode 15. Is all the tracking that we were doing. Like we were mentioning it through like when it happened in every episode in the episodes, but like we haven't like tallied everything up since then.
Full
Um
disclosure, this is an approximation. I couldn't. I just couldn't keep track of everything consistently.
yes, but I made you at least put everything together for this episode.
Yeah.
She was complaining about it and like like I'm not doing this for our next podcast.
I quit.
Yeah, we didn't do the best job, but we tried.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I can go. I was tracking gloves that Ed destroyed and when a homunculus died. So as for gloves, I counted about 8 times that a glove was destroyed, and a good chunk of those were only Ed's right glove when he was making his little arm blade thing, but I counted that too. And then for the homunculi deaths, oh boy, okay. Episode 10, Lust died once. Episode 13, Greed died once. Episode 14, Greed died probably 15 or more times when he was destroyed. Episode 19, Lust died like 30 times when Mustang flame roasted her, and Gluttony probably died like 18 times. Episode 23, Gluttony died twice. 24, Envy died once. 28, Gluttony died 4 times, Envy once. Episode 34, Sloth died twice, and 35, he died once. Episode 43, Envy died twice. 47, Gluttony died once, Pride died twice. And 48, Gluttony died 7 times, and Pride died once. 52, Sloth died twice. 53, Envy died 5 times. 54, Sloth died once, and Envy died over 10 times. 55, Sloth died once, and I think that was when he had his final death. In 61, Wrath died, and Pride died, and in 63, we lost Greed. The only
Ew.
homunculi death that really hurts.
Yep. Okay. So things that I was tracking was how many doors were made and then how many spears were made and how long the spears survived. So the doors, I must have, I only tracked 3 this
Hmm.
whole time, and I feel
Wow.
like there was more,
There should have
but
been, I think.
right? But I don't,
I think in the
I
manga
don't
there were
think
more.
so. Okay. So in episode 3, Ed makes a door to escape Father Cornello. In episode 50, Upheaval in Central, Ed makes a door to get into like the tunnels And then episode 55, Hohenheim made a door to escape father when he was being attacked by him. And then spears. There was a few, most of them made by Ed in episode 1, 2, and 3. Ed made spears. And then in episode 12, Azumi made a spear. In episode 19, Ed made a spear. And then in episode 52, Ed made a spear again. And the one that survived the longest, the one that survived the shortest amount of time was in episode 2. It survived for 12 seconds. They're all like, oh wait, sorry. No, episode 12, 10 seconds. What am I? Okay, I literally said like the second highest one. What is wrong with me? And then the one that survived the longest was in episode 52 because we saw it in episode 52 and in episode 53. And we never see it destroyed. So
It's just laying there now.
Yep, it's just still there. It survived forever. He finally figured it out how to when to make his spears so that they won't get destroyed. Yeah, that was our tracking. And then we also wanted to just mention some super random, like funny things that we noticed, like unrealistic things that we noticed in the show. One is that everyone is able to draw perfect circles. Like, I don't think I ever saw like a imperfect circle, like when somebody was doing alchemy.
Yeah.
And like we know Ed is a terrible artist. Like we saw
he tried
his
to
drawings.
trash out me.
Yeah.
I feel like he's good with geometric things, but anything organic, forget about it.
Yeah. So it's just like, I think I saw a post somewhere that it was like, that was like the first part of an alchemist training is that they have to like spend hours drawing circles so that they're perfect. So that was it's just like, how is everybody able to draw a perfect circle? Like even
They
in
all
the
grew up
final
playing
one,
Pokemon Rangers on the Nintendo DS.
even when like in Ed's final like transmutation circle, when he's like drawing on the uneven ground, it doesn't like look quite perfect, but that's because the ground is uneven. Otherwise it would be perfect. Like it's just I don't
Yeah,
get
and
it.
that's not, he can't see the whole circle as he's drawing. That's like, oh, let me guess, and just go around. Yeah, it would take me a couple tries. I'm pretty good at drawing circles, given that I'm an artist and I use that as my base when I'm drawing heads and stuff like that. But even then, it's like kind of wobbly and definitely more of an oval.
So I don't know. It's a mystery that will never be solved. And then the other thing is Ed never once got his hair stuck in his automail. Like that would have happened like
That would have been so painful.
yeah, one would have been so painful, but also like it definitely should have happened.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, yeah. I So Ed only started growing out his hair after his automail surgery. And at first I thought that was because it would just be too much of a hassle to try cutting it with his automail arm because it'd be hard to like reach back there and do like details and finer things with his automail arm and holding scissors and stuff like that. But he keeps it long even after he gets his original arm back. And that could be because he's used to it and likes the style now. But I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, wouldn't it be easier to just keep your hair short? I mean, you're traveling all the time and he can use his automail arm like a normal appendage and like yeah, what if it gets stuck in something? You're fighting all the time. Why have long hair? I mean, if I would not be growing out my hair if I were like a super active person. Like I have thought about hypotheticals in my life. And I'm like, if I were a professional athlete or if I were in the military, say goodbye to my hair, I'm getting a pixie cut.
yeah, I don't know. For me, like I like having longer hair. Like I'm not a like I've had shorter hair before and it's not a good look for me. Uh so I just prefer it long even though I don't necessarily think like my job is super conducive to like having long hair. Like I have it up all the time.
Yeah.
Like I actually don't I don't like it having it down because I don't like it when it's in my face.
Yeah.
Um, I have a thing about people who cover their face with their hair. It's gotten better now that we've watched a few shows with like
Ooh, you would
characters
have
that
had
I
a
really
real
like.
problem with Ishigami then, Kaguya-sama.
I know, that's what I'm saying. That's why it's gotten better because like we've watched a few shows with characters that had hair in their face and like okay, I'm okay with them. But they're almost like always like hiding something. I guess I don't know. I guess for me I like rely heavily on like reading people's facial expressions. And so like when they have half their face covered by their hair,
True.
it bothers me.
That's
'Cause I'm like, I
hard.
can't see what you're thinking. But anyway, yes, and then we are almost done. A few weeks ago, we asked if anybody had any questions that we wanted that um they wanted us to cover, and we did have a question from our listener Cody who asked, which version of the story do you think was better paced, Brotherhood or the manga?
Yeah, while I love the show so much, I think the manga was better paced for the sole reason of payoff. The anime kind of not rushed things, but they gave you some information a long time before the manga did.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the main one being the human transmutation that Ed and Al performed. It wasn't revealed until later in the manga, but they revealed it right away in the show. And I think the payoff is way better in the manga when you find out, oh, these kids did something bad. Um, yeah, and I like both versions are good on their own, but sometimes you just can't beat the original source material.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I definitely like the pacing of the manga better. And they also just like had more time to like cover some things in more detail, like all of this like the Ishvalan War.
Yep.
It was like a whole volume.
And there was more about
Um,
Winry's parents, and
mhm.
then the thing that I really wish Brotherhood had, but that actually 2003 does have, is the coal mine, the Usewell mine
Oh
story with
yeah, that was a
Yoki.
good story. Yeah.
Yeah, that was what the first chapter of the manga, and
I
it's
think
like
so.
it is there solely to set up who Ed and Al are. It's a great
Hmm.
character building short story, really quick, but it really sets the mood.
I don't know why they had that the first episode of Full Metal like is just unnecessary. Like they should have done the Usewell Mine story, like
And
because
it
it
doesn't even track with the power system as well, because the guy was just the
yeah
freezing alchemist, or he boils water and
yeah
freezes water. That's
that's not really alchemy.
phases, and not
Mm-hmm.
it's maybe it's alchemy. I don't know, but it just seems
Mm,
different.
it's not really alchemy. That
You're
would
just
be my
you're like
depending
speeding
on
up the molecules, right?
like what
Or the
he's
atoms, I
doing.
mean.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. And then also we just wanted to mention one other listener. Okay, I have no idea.
Sama's World.
Yes. Um, they like wrote a very nice message, like encouraging people to check out our podcast. Um, so just wanted to give you a shout out and say thanks. We're
Thank
glad that
you.
you're enjoying it. We have really enjoyed doing the podcast.
Yes.
And we like that the right people have found it. So thank you for that. Um, and now we're gonna wrap it up. We still have one more bonus episode, but
Yeah, don't
this
worry.
is don't worry, we're not done yet. But uh we just want to talk about why Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is the best show.
Yes. Yeah.
Um so we have a few different things we wanted to talk about. First, um all of the female characters are amazing and they like serve a purpose and they're not just there for fan service.
Most of the
Um,
time.
most of the time.
There's the
Yeah.
sandwich scene. But that's honestly the only fan service that I was kind of like, it's funny. So,
Yeah, I was like okay with that. Um, yeah, there are a few moments like that, but like all the female characters, like they're all like unique people, and they all serve a purpose in the story. Um, and they're all like strong, independent women, and I love it.
yeah.
And also another thing, reason why it's the best is because just like the relationship between Ed and Al,
Yeah.
um, the familial bond.
I love that because, well, the thing that happens with main characters sometimes is they're either a total sweetheart, like Tanjiro from Demon Slayer, who have like just heart on their sleeves, or they're total tsunderes and kind of like pretend to hate people. And Ed kind of falls into a perfect balance because he's not going to take it easy on people. Like he'll do tough love, but he also knows when to be soft with people. Like, well, not just Al, but like with Winry. But with Al, he would never say anything mean to him. He's always looking to look out for him and protect him. He takes responsibility. And likewise with Al, he knows that his armored body can withstand a lot, so he'll like shield Ed with his body. He makes sure his brother's doing okay and looks after his emotional and mental health as well as physical.
Yeah, they're while Ed I would say is like the main character, they're both great.
Yeah,
They're both great main characters.
I love them
Uh,
so
yeah.
much.
And then also the just like the overall message or like purpose of the story is is great. Like the final quote is so good. It honestly like makes me cry.
It it
It,
could get you through some hard times, honestly.
yeah, yeah. I love it. And also just like the whole like the life is valuable and we shouldn't take it for granted and we should protect it.
Yeah.
Um, I love that. And then um the story's just very I don't know, it has a good balance of like yes, something terrible happened and there are very low moments when it's like, oh, we're not going to be able to complete our mission or we've lost these really important people, but there's still hope in the story. And I think it's part of it is like they're so young and so I don't know, when you're young you have that more positive outlook on life. Life hasn't beaten you down yet, right?
Not too hard yet.
Yeah. But also because of what they had gone through at the same time is they I feel like they were a little bit more mature and aware of the world as well. So it's
Yeah.
like a good balance. And also the discussion of being cautious about science and like how you use it, like using it responsibly, but then also seeing the opportunities that it has to to help people and make the world a better place. I don't know, this is just a show that makes you think
Yeah. Yeah.
about a lot of different things. Um, and then also just a few other things is the openings and endings were great. All of them. Honestly, like I still love them, but I have found other shows that I like better, like the openings and endings, but they're all great in this. Like there wasn't one where I would say the last one I was like a little bit disappointed by, like I didn't feel like it fit.
It's a
with
good
the
song. I
last.
just think the imagery was
Yeah,
off-putting. I don't know.
yeah. But
But yeah,
I still liked the song. I
yeah.
liked all of them.
And the
Um,
soundtrack too, like the things that play in the
yes,
background.
yes, so good. Um, and then also it's funny. It's a great.
See the sandwich scene. Or
Yes.
or those little the mini series they did, like the Flame Alchemist rap.
Oh, that one. I honestly like pretty
I
much
was
have that thing
cackling.
memorized.
I
Yeah.
haven't memorized.
And then the last thing why it's the best is because it has a good ending. It has a satisfying ending. Um,
And it didn't drag on for too long. Like there
yeah,
was a beginning, middle, and end. It was a set thing, and that's how the best shows are. Like, I mean, sorry to say, but there are some shows that just peter out because they just keep going when they're not
go
supposed
on
to.
and on. Yeah.
That's more of an America problem.
Yes. But
Well, One Piece. People say that One
I
Piece is still good though.
yeah, I don't
So
know. I don't know. Like that is like the one that comes to mind is like, oh, One Piece is going on forever. And so I can't imagine that it's all been good.
there's a
I
lot of
don't know.
filler I've heard, but
Yeah.
can't judge it because I haven't watched it. I probably never will because I don't have that kind of time.
Yeah. I'd rather watch other things.
Yeah.
Even though it's true that I have heard it's good, but eh.
Yeah.
I'll just live my sister's watching it, so
Yeah, just get her to tell you the good parts.
yep. Yep. All right. That's all we have for this episode. Um, thanks for listening. We will be back next week, and next week we're going to talk about um the original Full Metal, the movies, some of the light novels, and
And the
then
bloopers.
oh yes, okay, we cannot forget yes.
The
We'll talk
bloopers are
about
like
the
the most
bloopers.
important part.
Yes, we won't forget that. And then also we're going to talk about what we're doing next and
Yeah,
yeah, what
super
that's going to
excited.
look like. Yes. All right.
Thanks for listening.
Yep. Bye.